Alright, I'm just going to take you through the general process that I go through when I make one of these small paintings. So first I'm just blocking in the black and the white. So I can see that this is taking up only a pretty small bit of the top. So it might be this much and then it goes down a bit. And this one, I can see on the right side, it's almost halfway in the paper. So let me mark approximately where halfway is and then just start right above that, and it also curves upwards a bit. This part is almost a quarter of the way down, between a third and a quarter, and I just eye it, but you can draw the lines in and you can measure it out if that's easier for you. So I just block the shapes in like so. Same here, I just block it in just to get a general idea of where all of my squiggles need to be. And that's the basic outlines. Now I get to fill in the weird shapes. So I always try to classify them in my mind, try to see what type of shape it is, and I sometimes give them weird names or descriptors while I'm drawing them. This part is just fairly straight. And then you can see that point is also just past halfway. So I need to make sure when I go that I go past the halfway mark, which is there, and then take it down like so. And then I add the round bit and this shape. I think it's actually supposed to be a bit bigger. And then I need to check where this part starts so that I know where to go. I think it starts around about here. Add the slight curve and that squiggle going down. And then there's a big dome going up. And now adding in all of the markings. I want to show you what I mean with classifying the shapes in my mind, but now there's nothing that really looks something I can think of at the moment. The previous one I did, I felt it looked a lot like animals, but we have none of that here. Maybe a worm and a blocky thing. Now for the next part, that's also a bit more irregular. I use my outlines that I blocked in, and I just block in the dips and the peaks. So when I draw anything, I always try to relate the shapes to one another and to keep the proportions within the drawing very consistent. So I'll look at this dip and then I'll see it relates to the end of that shape. So when I'm drawing it in, I'll try to keep it in line with the end of that shape. So the tip should be around about here, which makes sense with the drawing I have so far. And there's nothing to relate this part to now, so I'm not going to draw it in now. I'm going to find something that relates to something else on this drawing. And I think that peak there also relates to the stalactite there at the top. It's almost like a cavern. It's just a little bit left of it. So if I draw that line down, it should actually correspond to this little hill. And now I can finish this area in between because now I know what the scale should be for it. I know what has to fit in there. And again, I can now try to see if this relates to anything. We have this part coming down here that relates to this peak. So when I draw this part down, it should relate to a peak round about there. And then I can draw in everything in between. This almost looks like a wave. And then I always look at the amount of space between two objects. So this object versus this shelf, it's actually a quite narrow space in between there. So I try to focus on the space. Same here, I see how thin that space is there. Then I know where I need to bring my curve. And then I also try to look at angles. So this angle is going down. You can even practice it on, if you printed it out on the piece of paper, you printed it out, or on your smart device's screen. Practice that angle and then just copy it there. And we say this is where we start with the shape. So I draw out the start, and again, then I know where to go. You can also look at the relationship between these two, quite close together. And now again, I look at the relationship between this dot and everything around it. It's in line with this shape right here, going diagonally down. And then again, I try to see to what this relates. It's in line with that droplet, that teardrop shape, We haven't filled it in yet, but I can quickly do it. I can see that it's here. And then when we go down, it should be in line with this indentation. So we're still good on the proportions here. Right, I think this is where we stop with this line, because otherwise we'll mess up the proportions again. We can quickly draw the insert there, the hole in the black. And then again, you see it kind of ends in line with the second dip. So when you look at the second dip, draw it down. That's about how big the insert should be. And it checks out, because when we compare this indent and the amount of space between the indent and the hole, then it looks about right as well. Now, let's do the other side and try to meet ourselves halfway. This indent again relates to this dot and that bean shape. So make sure that that is in line there. And the white here forms almost a little gloved hand. It almost looks like a fish that's swimming. We have the fin and then the back fin. And we check out that this distance is almost the same. I think I brought mine in a bit too much. It's thicker on the picture. Now we need to look at what we did here and find a point to relate it to. This indent is almost in the middle of the page. So we need to find the middle. Then we know where to put that indent. And now we can see that I put this shape a little bit too far to the right. So let's fix that. So we said the indent is almost in the middle. We'll connect the indent to where we are coming from. We remove this part here. We did say that the area between these two look fine. So we draw it in just a tad bit closer, but not too close. I think we might have gone too wide on the shape here. This one looks a bit too big. Maybe we can make it smaller. Yeah, it's definitely too big, because if we look at the distance between this black blob and this black blob, these two are much closer together. So then we need to fix that as well. Back to drawing the glove and the head of the fish and the fin. Try to do it smaller this time. And the rear fin. Okay, now we just add the small details. I actually just want to get the position of the shape quickly. So I try to zoom out with my eyes and just see where exactly is it lying. And this looks about right. And then again, we look at the angle of that line and connect it down. And this looks like a shoe or foot. The bottom white part almost looks like a cartoon whale, but only the front of it. And then we have some rolling mountains. Again, we're not aiming for perfection, just try to get everything relatively right and relatively with the right proportions. This almost looks like the head of a bird that's standing in the grass. This is a slightly elongated dot. This could also be a bird. It's looking over its own shoulder. Beak on this side. I'm drawing things too big again. Oh well. Time to redo them. And then we see, okay, it's close-ish to the weird shape. That's not a bird. And then we draw the bird in. The elongated dot. The other bird, and I think everything else is in place.